Movies are a fun way to pass the time, escape, or entertain ourselves. There's a phrase, movie magic, that refers to creating illusions and essentially magic on movie sets to make audiences believe what is seen on screen is actually real. Whether that is through special effects or an actor's portrayal, we have to believe these moments are really happening. What if we told you some of these moments and reactions were real? Yep. Today we will be discussing moments where actors are genuinely experiencing the moments and not just using their brilliant acting chops. Before we dive in, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with our latest videos. And it's that time again. Can you guess what feature film these emoji are showing? Find out at the end of this video.
Whenever you come in here and interrupt me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me. And it will then take me time to get back to where I was. Understand?
Yeah.
The Shining. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining has developed an enormous cult following throughout the years. The scariness of it also still stands, but the real horror was actually on set, especially for Shelley Duvall. Her performance in Kubrick's film was genuinely horrifying, as she was tormented by Jack Nicholson's character and his descent into madness while at the Overlook Hotel. But the reason why Shelley's performance was so believable and compelling was it because it was actually real. Shelley Duvall endured some torture while filming the movie. Kubrick wanted her for the part, but he was also her biggest critic. In order to make sure she seemed weakened and frantic, he kept her isolated and verbally abused her on set. He advised crew members to ignore her. He even made her perform the baseball bat scene 127 times. Can you believe that? Imagine just how exhausting that would have been.
I think you can appreciate why I wanted to tell you about it.
The scene even made the Guinness Book of Records for the most takes ever done for a scene with spoken dialogue. Her red, puffy eyes were a result of genuinely crying. She stated that she would cry for up to 12 hours a day and was in and out of ill health because of the role. She gave an incredible performance, and we can't imagine anybody else in the role. But do you think Kubrick pushed her just a little bit too far? The Wolf of Wall Street. The Wolf of Wall Street gave us some pretty intense performances, scenes, and some very colorful language. And of course, yet another Oscar nomination for Leonardo DiCaprio, which he sadly didn't win this time. One of the characters that stood out the most was Matthew McConaughey's Mark Hanna. There's one scene in particular that stands out to all of us, and that is of course the famous chest-bumping scene. The humming and chest-bumping scene was a result of something that comes naturally from McConaughey. When he was on the Graham Norton show, he explained that it's something he's done for a while. He does it before scenes to relax himself and get his voice to drop. He was doing it before filming that scene and they were ready to move on to the next scene. But before they could, Leonardo DiCaprio asked him what that was all about, then promptly suggested to do it in the scene. Once McConaughey did it, he also improvised convincing Leo to do it as well, as a sort of passing the torch ritual. And the rest is, well, history. E.T. emerges. Who doesn't love the heartwarming story of the extraterrestrial who befriends a young boy named Elliot? It's a wonderful story full of adventure, friendship, love, and of course, science fiction. But what is so marvelous about this movie is that we believe E.T. is real. The story is just amazing, but what really drives the believability home is the performances the actors give. So how do you get genuine reactions? Well, Spielberg had everyone on set act as if E.T. were a real actor. He had the special effects designers test out movements before production even began so the illusion wasn't broken. It makes sense, right? In order to get the most genuine reactions from Drew Barrymore, he didn't show her the puppet before the scene where she first sees him. So her screaming when she sees E.T. and his stretchy neck are totally real. Spielberg also told her that E.T. was a living, breathing alien, so during the scene where E.T. dies, the sobbing reaction shots of Drew are genuinely heartbroken tears. She really believed that E.T. had passed away. Poor kid. She gave a great performance, but don't you think it was just a little bit too much to lie to the kid?
Grasping at the last vestiges of his career.
Birdman Tidy Whities. Part of what made Alejandro Inarritu's Oscar-winning film Birdman so awesome was that it seems to be one long continuous shot. Naturally, making something look like it's one continuous shot, or a oneer as it's commonly known, requires a lot of choreography, planning, and of course emerging challenges. But the Birdman team was ready to roll. One of their most challenging scenes was the scene in which Riggin, who is played by Michael Keaton, is locked out of Broadway's St. James Theater wearing only his underwear. He has to walk past fans in Times Square who are staring at him to get to the theater's main entrance. It sounds simple enough. Except for production couldn't shut down Times Square and fill it with paid extras, so they decided to roll with it and use the actual crowds. This risk involved having people look directly at the camera, and there was really no way they could have cut away to anything else. So they kept the crew small, rehearsed the scene, and hired a group of street drummers who dance and perform nearby. This kept tourists and passerby more entertained than a guy in his underwear. But those crowd reactions are legitimate, and you know, Michael Keaton was actually out in Times Square in his undies, so that's pretty cool.
Wait, this is crazy. You want me to hit you?
That's right.
What, like in the face?
Surprise me.
Ear punch in Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club.
Second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
But today, we're gonna go ahead and break that rule. Sorry, Tyler. There's a scene in which Brad Pitt's character asks Edward Norton to hit him as hard as he can. The direction was to throw a somewhat meek punch aimed at Brad's shoulder. Sounds simple enough. But just before the cameras rolled, director David Fincher told Norton to hit Brad in the ear, unbeknownst to him, of course. Brad's reaction of being hit in the ear was totally real.
Mother... You hit me in the ear!
Who hits someone in the ear, anyway? How would you react?
Oh, do me, Yo-Yo Master. I want you to do me, 'cause you're the yo-yo guy.
The 40-year-old virgin waxing. Steve Carell became a big box office sensation with the hit comedy, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. If you haven't seen this yet, do yourself a favor and get right on that. It's hysterical. The most iconic scene in the Judd Apatow film is hands down the chest waxing scene. This scene makes the top of the list as one of the funniest scenes ever. The experience of going in for your first time and the pain that Carell exhibits is totally relatable. In fact, it almost seems a little too real, doesn't it?
Oh, you... Oh, I'm sorry. That's just your job.
Well, it actually was. Steve Carell really did have his chest waxed during the movie. He wanted to perform the scene himself and have his very furry torso waxed as he didn't think it would hurt that much. Obviously, he was incredibly mistaken as his screams, curses, and hilarious phrases in the movie show. The pain was certainly real, and it gave us some hilarious moments during the scene. Although we still aren't quite sure why he screams Kelly Clarkson. Carell says that when he went home that night, his wife was horrified when she saw the happy face staring right back at her. Or should we say the man-o'-lantern. Sarah Connor fights back. It's time for futuristic robots and scary technological takeover. Yep, we're talking about the Terminator series, which gave us the awesome badass character of Sarah Connor. Linda Hamilton's role as Sarah Connor was a hit, especially in Terminator 2, where she set the standard for female badassery and actually kicked some butt. Plus, Linda Hamilton is a badass in real life, so it was a natural fit. But it turns out Linda wasn't acting the entire time. In one scene, a staff of the asylum she was in was ordered to beat the heck out of her, but the actor kept reining it back because he didn't really want to hurt Hamilton. A noble effort, except for the fact that every time he failed, they had to reshoot the scene over and over.
Model citizen.
To make it worse, she had to fall down to her knees on hard concrete repeatedly. Ouch. This, of course, pissed the heck out of Hamilton, so in a later scene where Sarah attacks the same staff character, she openly beat the crud out of him with a wooden mop handle. For authenticity, of course.
And I come back to you now. At the turn of the tide.
Aragorn breaks his toe. Aside from the whole series being absolutely amazing visually and in terms of story, we also watched for the iconic characters. In the face of adversity, these characters have taught us that the most important thing is friendship, loyalty, and courage. But what do you do when the hurdle you're facing actually crushes you for real? That is exactly what happened to Viggo Mortensen during the scene in the Two Towers. When Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli find a pile of orc bodies, they think Merry and Pippin were killed, and Aragorn ends up kicking a helmet down the hill. Viggo did this take 4 times, and on the 5th take, he screamed and fell to his knees. It was later found out that he had actually broken 2 of his toes. Funny enough, this was the best take, and the one that appears in the film.
Snozzwankers. Vermicious Knids. What kind of rubbish is that?
I'm sorry, but all questions must be submitted in writing.
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Gene Wilder's performance in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory will forever be iconic. It was magical the first time we saw it, and we all wished we could have won a trip to the factory. The very first moment we see Wonka emerge from the factory with a limp got a real reaction from the kids, as none of them knew he would be limping. Another instance of real reactions from the kids was when they entered the chocolate room. They didn't let them see the room until it was time to film, so the magic in their eyes was actually real. Remember that terrifying boat ride scene? The one where things get all psychedelic and it seems like Willy Wonka is losing his marbles? That scene was a surprise to the rest of the cast, who actually thought that Gene Wilder had lost his mind. Keeping things from your actors is definitely the best way to get a genuine reaction, but it might end up leaving some of them totally scarred. Gene Wilder also didn't prepare Peter Ostrom, who played Charlie Bucket, for his rage when he reprimands him for stealing the fizzy lifting drinks. The scared look on Ostrom's face is totally real. Poor kids.
I promise you they'll be quite all right. When they leave here, they'll be completely restored to their normal, terrible old selves. But maybe they'll be a little bit wiser for the wear. Anyway, don't worry about them.
Be a good little fella now and open the door.
Home Alone. Home Alone is one of those iconic movies that everyone's seen, or at least almost everyone. Macaulay Culkin plays Kevin, the sassy and clever boy who survived Christmas alone while some bandits tried to break into his home. This would normally be a cause for concern, but Kevin was one creative kid who created a series of booby traps to fool the bad guys. Well, it turns out that it wasn't all a total fun fest. Culkin was actually left permanently scarred by a bit of overenthusiastic method acting on Joe Pesci's part. Pesci avoided Culkin on set so that he would genuinely be afraid of him. In a scene where the robbers hang him up on a hook, Pesci says, "I'm gonna bite each one of your fingers off, one at a time." And he actually did, and broke the skin. Yikes, that is not okay to do to a kid. Well, there you have it, friends. Those were some moments where actors weren't acting. What did you think? Which of these was your favorite? Are there any moments that we may have missed? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. And before you go, here's the answer to the emoji quiz. Did you get it right? Be sure to let us know. And as always, thanks for watching.